The marketplace was alive with the hum of voices, the clatter of wooden stools, the rattle of clay pots, and the sharp, sweet scent of spices that rolled like smoke over the narrow streets. In the heart of the village, under the shadow of a twisted baobab tree, an old mask maker had set up his humble store. He was a thin, wiry man with eyes like molten gold, the kind that seemed to see through walls, through lies, through the very heartbeat of a person. His hands were weathered, carved with scars of countless carvings, and yet they moved with an uncanny precision as he polished a mask that glimmered like the surface of a river under moonlight. This mask was unlike any other. Its face was smooth, painted with the deepest obsidian, yet etched with delicate golden lines that shimmered when the sun struck them. Eyes like amber orbs glowed faintly as though they were alive, though no soul resided within them yet. The mask hummed faintly, a vibration that made the air around it quiver. It had been born from a story as old as the first griot song, a mask forged with a fragment of a trickster spirit, bound to seek justice in a world riddled with greed. The villagers whispered about it, cautious and curious, yet no one dared touch it. Rumors had traveled faster than the market drums. This mask did not obey the hands of men, it chose its own. Some said it had been abandoned in the forest by the trickster who had once worn it, a spirit who delighted in cunning, mischief, and vengeance. Others said it had never left the realm of spirits, that it existed between the trees and the smoke and only revealed itself to those destined for ruin or glory. Among the crowd was a man named Kweku, a merchant of middling wealth, known for his sharp tongue and sharper ambition. He had hair as black as night and a presence that demanded attention. But more than his stature, it was his greed that defined him. Kweku had spent years scheming, borrowing, cheating, and bargaining in ways that left rivals ruined. Yet, even with his amassed wealth, he hungered for more: power, recognition, influence, anything that would make him untouchable. That morning, he wandered into the marketplace as if drawn by some unseen thread. When his eyes fell upon the mask, Kweku froze. Something in its gaze, or perhaps its lack of a gaze, called to him. The villagers instinctively recoiled, sensing the weight of its aura, but Kweku stepped closer. His fingers itched, a primal desire to possess, to own, to conquer. The mask seemed to regard him, and for a heartbeat, the world fell silent. The cries of hawkers, the clatter of pots, even the wind among the baobab's roots faded into nothingness. "Ah," said the mask maker, his voice a dry rustle. "You are brave or foolish. Tell me, merchant, do you seek wealth? Do you seek power?" Kweku laughed, a low, confident rumble. "Power, yes. Wealth, always. And why not?" He leaned closer, his breath mixing with the faint scent of oil and dust that surrounded the old man. "Show me what you have, old man. I can see it already. It is mine." The mask maker shook his head slowly, almost sorrowfully. "You do not understand. It is not a thing to own. It is alive. It chooses. Many have tried to command it, to destroy it, and failed. It will find a way to teach you whether you wish it or not. A clever story to frighten the weak. I am neither weak nor foolish. Bring it here." With trembling, precise hands, the mask maker handed the mask to Kweku. The moment his fingers brushed the smooth obsidian surface, he felt it. Sharp, electric, and alive, like fire crawling under his skin. The mask whispered, not in words, but in thought, "You are mine." Kweku recoiled slightly, but a grin crept across his face. "Mine?" he repeated. "Then I shall wear you and show the world what it means to command greatness." That night, in his grand house perched on the edge of the village, Kweku placed the mask carefully on his shelf, studying it under the flickering light of a single lantern. He turned it over in his hands, tracing the golden etchings, feeling a strange pulse beneath the surface. Something about it seemed to breathe along with him, almost anticipating his desires. But as the moon rose high, a wind whispered through the cracks of his door, carrying voices he did not recognize. The mask trembled. Then, without warning, it slipped from his hands and settled over his face. Kweku tried to pull it off. It would not budge. Panic gripped him, but even as he tugged, the mask seemed to meld with his skin, as if it were alive, as if it were testing him, probing the greed buried deep in his bones. In the reflection of the window, he saw his own eyes hidden behind the mask's amber orbs. But there was something else, something alive and calculating, watching, judging. A voice slithered into his mind, soft, seductive, and chilling. You wanted power. You wanted wealth. Do you understand what it costs? Kweku laughed nervously, his voice trembling. I do not fear cost. I am Kweku. The mask hummed, a vibration that coursed through his entire body, and for a moment, Kweku felt euphoria, the intoxicating sense of invincibility, of being more than mortal, more than human. He saw visions of gold, of lands, of people bowing to him, of power bending to his command. And yet, buried beneath it, there was something darker, a shadow of deeds yet to be done, whispers of actions that would stain his soul. Days passed. Kweku could not remove the mask. It became part of him, living, breathing, whispering, influencing. At night, it compelled him to wander through the village streets, taking him to corners of shadow and silence. He would awaken, unsure of what he had done. Coins would vanish, livestock misplaced, strange messages scratched on walls in golden ink that only he could see. Fear crept into him, but so did desire. The mask promised greatness, whispered secrets of markets, rivalries, and opportunities too tempting to resist. The villagers began to notice strange events. Cattle disappeared, fires erupted without cause, and rumors of a man cursed by a mask. Mothers whispered warnings to their children. Do not look upon the obsidian eyes of greed, for it will know your heart and bend you to ruin. Yet Kweku, intoxicated by the whispers, dismissed them. He had power now, or at least the mask told him he did. And as he stood by his window, looking down at the village lights flickering like fireflies, he could feel the mask staring, alive in his flesh. Something deep, cunning, and ancient had awakened, something that did not forgive and did not forget. That night, the mask laughed, not with lips, but with thought, with intent, with the quiet certainty that the trickster spirit within had chosen its new vessel. And Kweku, who thought he had chosen it, realized too late that he was not the master.
Nights grew
The
long
mask
and restless.
was.
Kweku could no longer sleep without feeling the mask's weight pressing against his face, as though it had grown roots into his flesh. Each time he closed his eyes, he saw flickering shadows, glimpses of gold glinting in places he had never seen, and the eyes of people staring at him, not with fear, but with something darker, a knowing curiosity. He tried to speak to the mask, to command it, but it responded only with thoughts, images, and suggestions that crept into his mind like smoke through a crack in a hut. One evening, a sudden chill ran through his home. The lanterns flickered, and the wind carried a low, distant laugh, sharp, mocking, and almost human. Kweku shivered, feeling the mask tighten, as if it was hugging his face in amusement. You think you control me, it whispered inside his skull, a voice slick with cunning. But every heartbeat, every thought, I am with you. I am you. Kweku's heart raced. What do you want from me? He demanded aloud, his voice trembling. I have given you everything, gold, land, power. What more do you need? The mask pulsed, almost rhythmically, as if it were laughing. You misunderstand, it said. I do not need, I choose. You desire wealth, yes, but wealth is hollow. Influence, yes, but influence is fleeting. I am here to awaken what already sleeps within you, to show the world what greed truly becomes. That night, Kweku woke to find his hands smeared with mud and ash. He had no memory of leaving his house, yet the village square was in chaos. 2 goats were slaughtered, their bodies left in the center of the market. Strange symbols had been etched into the soil with a golden pigment, shimmering faintly under the moonlight. Villagers screamed and ran, cursing the night spirits, but Kweku felt nothing. Not fear, not remorse, only a strange thrill that tightened his chest like a drumbeat. The mask hummed softly. "Do you see?" it whispered. "You wield influence. You create fear. You are already powerful. Now, embrace it fully." He hesitated at first, but the thrill was addictive. The mask guided him to take what he wanted, showing him visions of traders, rivals, and chiefs who could be outmaneuvered, humiliated, or manipulated. Its whispering was intoxicating, the line between thought and action blurred, until Kweku no longer knew if he was himself or merely the mask's instrument. Within a week, Kweku's house became a place of whispered rumors. Villagers spoke of strange lights flickering through the windows at night and of shadows that moved without bodies. Some claimed to see a figure roaming the rooftops, cloaked in darkness, with amber eyes gleaming through the night. Mothers clutched their children and muttered prayers to the ancestors. But Kweku, drunk on the mask's influence, laughed silently behind his closed door, feeling invincible. Then came the first true test. A wealthy trader, hearing of Kweku's newfound luck, came to him with a proposition. He offered a rare shipment of ivory, more precious than gold, promising untold wealth if Kweku brokered the deal in his favor. But the mask whispered a darker plan. "Do not accept the trade. Take it. Take all. Show them your power." Kweku, emboldened, set a trap. That night, he led the trader through the village under the cover of darkness and into an abandoned shrine by the river. There, the mask whispered again, stronger this time, guiding his hands. By dawn, the trader was gone, leaving only his ivory behind. The villagers were horrified, rumors spreading like wildfire. The mask has cursed him. It eats men's souls. And yet, Kweku felt no guilt. Only the mask's approving pulse, a rhythm that synced with his heartbeat, guiding him to the next step, the next victim, the next opportunity. The mask had become more than a mask. It was a force, a cunning partner in his schemes, a shadow of his desires.
Kweku sank
and
into the
fears.
mask's influence, the more he noticed subtle, terrifying changes. At night, the mask would move slightly on its own, adjusting its fit, tightening its hold. It began whispering things he would never dare think, secrets of the villagers, hidden grudges, sins long buried. It promised revenge, promised dominion over those who mocked or slighted him, and hinted at pleasures and terrors beyond comprehension. One night, he dreamt he was drowning in a river of molten gold. Hands emerged from the liquid, clawing at his face, whispering his deepest fears aloud. He tried to scream, but the mask laughed, and when he awoke, the dream had left him trembling and hollow. Yet, in the tremor, he sensed exhilaration, the thrill of a man who had brushed against forbidden power and survived. The villagers began noticing another change. Kweku's eyes, even when the mask was not worn, glimmered faintly amber, as if the mask's spirit had seeped into his very soul. Children who passed by him whispered in hushed tones, "The mask sees you even when it sleeps." Elders shook their heads, muttering warnings to one another, but Kweku dismissed all caution. The mask had promised him greatness, and he would not yield. "I am master of my fate," he told it one night, speaking into the darkness of his chamber. "I choose, I command." The mask pulsed, not with obedience, but amusement. "Ha, foolish mortal, you misunderstand. You never chose me, I chose you, and now the game begins." With that, the mask revealed the first true scope of its power. The next morning, a rival merchant awoke to find all his goods gone, replaced by nothing but a single obsidian mask, identical to Kweku's. A whispering wind carried the message, "Greed is a mirror. See yourself within it." The village erupted in panic. Kweku, however, felt invincible. The mask's guidance was intoxicating, its whispers irresistible.
But deep within him, a tiny ember of fear glimmered, a question he dared not speak aloud. What happens when the mask decides he is no longer useful? That question would not wait long, for every night the mask's whispers grew bolder, darker, and the shadows it commanded began to move with a mind of their own. Quico was no longer walking alone. He was a puppet on threads he could not see, dancing to a rhythm older than the village, older than himself, older than life. And the mask, it was smiling. The sun rose like a molten coin over the horizon, casting long, trembling shadows across the village. But Kweku no longer noticed the ordinary world. Every leaf, every stone, every whisper of wind seemed to carry the mask's voice. He had stopped sleeping without it pressed to his face. It was no longer merely an object. It had become his skin, his reflection, his obsession. The villagers' fear only fed him. They avoided him in the marketplace, lowering their eyes and murmuring under their breath, "Beware Kweku, for the mask has claimed him." And the mask, it was watching, always watching. Its amber eyes glowed faintly beneath his fingers as he washed in the river, as he counted coins, as he plotted schemes to outwit rival merchants. It delighted in his ambition, but it hungered for more than mere wealth. It hungered for justice, a justice only the trickster spirit bound within
mask
could
spoke
mete out.
differently. Its voice was sharper, almost gleeful. "You have taken gold, you have stolen livestock, you have crushed rivals, but these are trifles. True power, true enlightenment comes when the victim sees your hand and cannot escape it." Kweku's pulse quickened. He had no idea what it meant, but the thrill of anticipation was intoxicating. The mask guided him silently to the market square, where the traders had gathered for the evening. It whispered their fears, their weaknesses, their secrets. With a subtle hand gesture, a glance, a whispered word, Kweku manipulated them like a master puppeteer. One merchant lost his shipment of silk to a sudden fire. Another's coins vanished overnight. And yet, every success, every whispered victory carried a shadow. The mask seemed to feed on the villager's fear, pulsing against his face with each act. Kweku began to notice something else, strange reflections in windows and mirrors. Sometimes he would see a grin that was not his own. Sometimes eyes that glowed amber when he blinked. At first, he thought he was imagining things, but soon he realized the mask was not only influencing him, it was shaping his very soul. His thoughts, once private, were no longer entirely his. And then came the first warning. A small child wandered near his home, her eyes wide with curiosity and fear. She carried a basket of wild berries, and as she approached the front steps, she stared straight at him. The mask pulsed violently, almost thrumming in his skin. Watch, see how the innocent react to what they sense. The child froze, and for a heartbeat, Kweku felt something strange, a flicker of conscience, a memory of what it meant to be human. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came. The mask had taken control. The child's gaze hardened, and she ran screaming into the night. Kweku, frozen, realized the mask had revealed something far deeper. Fear and respect were two sides of the same coin, and he had chosen the darker side. Days passed and Kweku's arrogance grew. He no longer hesitated to do the mask's bidding, though the tasks became stranger, darker. It was no longer enough to take gold or land. The mask demanded creativity in mischief and cunning in cruelty. One night, it led him into the forest, where he found the remnants of an abandoned shrine. Symbols glimmered in the moonlight, etched in a language he could not read. The mask pulsed against his face, whispering instructions. He performed strange rituals under its guidance, burning herbs, drawing sigils, and chanting words that felt older than the forest itself. When he returned home, he discovered the village in uproar. Animals had vanished, doors had been mysteriously locked from within, and people whispered of a dark power awakening. The mask hummed in approval, a soft vibration that sank into his chest like a drumbeat. Kweku felt exhilarated.
But with exhilaration came paranoia. Every whisper, every glance, every shadow seemed to conceal enemies. He began to see plots where none existed, betrayals that were only figments of the mask's cunning. He no longer trusted his friends, his neighbors, or even himself. And the mask, it thrived on it. Then came the first true test of loyalty. The mask led him to the home of a merchant he had once wronged. It instructed him to invite the man to a feast, a celebration of friendship and fortune. But once inside, the mask whispered a different plan. Betray him. Show him the true cost of
The merchant had once been a friend. He had trusted him. For a fleeting moment, Kweku felt fear. But the mask pressed, urging him forward. He followed its instructions, and by midnight, the merchant's secrets were exposed to the village. His reputation destroyed, his livelihood ruined. And all the while, Kweku watched with a mixture of awe and horror as the mask pulsed with satisfaction. The villagers began to murmur openly now, fear laced with superstition. The mask has chosen him. He is no longer Kweku. Elders convened in secret, discussing what to do about a man possessed by a force beyond mortal understanding. Some suggested confronting him with fire and iron, others proposed prayers and sacrifices, yet all feared the mask, for its legend was old and dangerous. It could not be destroyed, only obeyed, or outwitted by a cunning mind equal to the trickster who had created it. Kweku, however, ignored their warnings. He was intoxicated by the sense of power the mask gave him. It whispered secrets of wealth hidden in distant villages, strategies to manipulate kings and chiefs, ways to accumulate more than a single lifetime could hold. Every night, the mask drove him further into darkness, feeding on his ambition, his greed, his fear, and his pride. And yet, a small ember of doubt burned within him. Sometimes, when he stared into the mask's amber eyes, he saw flashes of something terrifying, not just his own face, but the face of the trickster who had forged it long ago, a face twisted with amusement and malice, promising judgment. He tried to tear the mask away once, in a fit of desperation. He yanked and pulled, screaming into the night, but it clung to him like living skin. "You cannot remove me," it hissed. "I am the hand of justice. I am the mirror of your soul. You chose me the moment you desired more than you could ever earn." Kweku sank to his knees, the mask's pulse echoing his heartbeat. He realized then the terrifying truth. The mask was not a tool, not a servant. It was a living entity, bound to a trickster spirit who had waited centuries for someone worthy of its challenge. And now he was trapped. The first true test had passed. Kweku had been judged and failed. The nights were no longer peaceful. They had become a theater of shadows and whispers. Kweku's home, once a symbol of wealth and ambition, had transformed into a place of unease. The mask clung to him like a second skin, pulsating with life, feeding on his desires and fears alike. Every time he blinked, he felt it moving, almost adjusting itself on his face, as though testing the limits of his endurance, watching for cracks in his resolve. The villagers whispered openly now. Children ran screaming when they passed his gates, claiming to see a figure with glowing amber eyes staring at them from the shadows. The elders huddled beneath the ancient baobab tree, muttering prayers and casting protective charms around their homes. Yet none dared confront Kweku. The mask had made him untouchable, or so it seemed. One night, under a blood-red moon, the mask compelled Kweku to leave his house. Its whispers were insistent, urgent, more commanding than ever. "Go, show the village the truth of greed. Teach them the cost of ambition. Only then will they know your power and mine." Kweku walked through the village like a man in a trance. Every shadow seemed alive. The wind carried voices he could not place. As he passed the marketplace, stalls were upended, pottery shattered, and chickens scattered into the night. It was chaos, but he felt exhilarated, a thrill that twisted his stomach into knots of anticipation. The mask hummed approvingly, vibrating against his skin with a rhythm that felt like a heartbeat of the village chief.
a man known for his wisdom and fairness. The mask whispered into Kweku's mind. Tonight, you reveal the hidden desires of those who think themselves virtuous. Show them that even the wise are not above temptation. Kweku hesitated, a flicker of conscience stirring, but the mask would not be denied. It pushed, a surge of power flowing through him, guiding his movements. He entered the chief's home silently, observing as the man slept peacefully, unaware of the looming presence. The mask's voice grew louder, commanding, almost urgent. Place the mask of truth upon him. Let him see himself as he truly is. Kweku obeyed. He found an old ceremonial mask in the chief's collection, a mask used for ritual truths, and placed it gently over the sleeping man's face. The chief awoke screaming, visions of his own greed, fear, and selfishness flashing before his eyes. Kweku watched in silent fascination as the chief convulsed, trapped within the mask's revelation, forced to confront the hidden corners of his soul. When it was over, the chief collapsed, exhausted, shaken to his core. Kweku felt a surge of triumph. The mask pulsed with satisfaction, and for a moment he allowed himself to believe he was in control. But the victory was short-lived. The mask began to whisper differently now, not commands but warnings. It said, "You are learning, but every choice carves a path you cannot undo. Every act of greed, every manipulation, you are feeding the shadow within, and the shadow grows." Kweku laughed nervously, trying to dismiss the words. But as he returned home, the streets seemed different. The shadow stretched longer, darker, more deliberate. Figures appeared at the edges of his vision, humans perhaps, or something else entirely. They watched him with intensity, their eyes reflecting the mask's amber glow. Every step he took, every breath he drew, he felt as though he was being haunted. Over the next few days, the mask's influence deepened. It no longer waited for nightfall. It whispered during the day, guiding Kweku's decisions, twisting his thoughts, even in business dealings. Every word he spoke, every choice he made, carried a subtle but devastating consequence. Rivals lost entire shipments, neighbors' crops withered mysteriously, and the village's livestock began disappearing. The people started leaving. Some fled to distant lands, unwilling to risk the mask's curse. Those who stayed hid, praying and watching from the safety of their homes. The once thriving village became a place of fear and superstition, where the wind itself seemed to carry the mask's laughter. One evening, as Kweku sat by his fire, the mask whispered a challenge unlike any before. It said, "There is a treasure hidden where no man dares tread. Claim it, and your power will be absolute. Feel, and you will pay the price of every sin you have committed." The promise of ultimate power tempted him beyond reason. He knew the village elders had warned of such things, treasures guarded by spirits, by tricksters, by curses older than time itself. But the mask's whispers drowned out all caution. Go, show the world your worth, fail and be broken, succeed and become legend. Kweku set out that night, guided by the mask, through the dense forest beyond the river. The trees seemed alive, branches curling like fingers to block his path, but the mask led him with certainty. Every step was a battle of will, every rustle of leaves a test of courage. And as he ventured deeper, he realized that he was not alone. Shadows moved at the edges of his vision, humans perhaps, or something else entirely. They watched him with intensity, their eyes reflecting the mask's amber glow. Hours passed, and the forest thickened, dark and suffocating. Kweku stumbled upon a clearing, illuminated by the moon. In the center lay a stone pedestal, upon which rested a chest of carved ivory and gold. He approached, heart pounding, the mask vibrating with anticipation. He reached out to claim it,
emerged
and the
a figure,
ground shuddered.
tall and thin, with eyes that burned like coals. Its skin was dark as night, and it moved with a grace that seemed unnatural. A voice, deep and resonant, echoed through the clearing. "You dare claim what was never yours?" Kweku froze. The mask pulsed violently against his face, and he realized the truth. This was no ordinary spirit. This was the trickster itself, the original owner of the mask, come to test him. "I chose you," the mask whispered, "but the test has begun. Will you bend or will you break?" Kweku's hands trembled, sweat dripping down his face. For the first time, fear overtook desire. The thrill of power, the intoxication of greed, the law of control, it all collided with the weight of reality. He understood, finally, that the mask had been a mirror, reflecting his own heart, his own flaws, and now the trickster had come to see if he could survive the reflection or be consumed by it. The shadows deepened. The wind carried laughter, sinister and knowing. Kweku knew that this night would define everything: his fate, his soul, the village, and the story of the mask that refused to die. And the mask pulsed again, alive, watching, smiling. The forest clearing was silent, yet the air thrummed with energy. The trickster spirit stood before Kweku, tall, impossibly thin, with eyes like smoldering coals. It radiated both danger and amusement, as though every heartbeat carried centuries of cunning, mischief, and judgment. The chest of gold and ivory lay between them, glimmering faintly under the moonlight, as if daring him to reach for it. The mask pulsed against Kweku's face, alive and insistent. It whispered promises of ultimate power, influence over kings, the wealth of 1,000 villages, eternal recognition. Its amber eyes seemed to burn into his soul, telling him that all he had ever desired was within reach. But the trickster's voice sliced through the seductive whispers. "Greed, mortal. Greed is a chain, not a crown. What you seek is not yours to claim without consequence. Every choice has a price, and tonight you will pay it or rise above it." Kweku's hands shook. The exhilaration of power warred with the gnawing fear he had tried to ignore. The mask pulsed again, stronger now, almost forcing him forward. "Take it, claim the treasure, all will be yours." And yet, as his fingers brushed the chest, a strange vision flashed before his eyes. He saw the faces of every person he had wronged, merchants whose livelihoods were destroyed, villagers who cowered in fear, even the small child who had fled screaming through the night. Their eyes were not angry, they were empty, hollow, and in that emptiness, Kweku glimpsed the cost of his ambition. Every act of greed, every whisper of cruelty had carved a shadow within his own soul. The trickster stepped closer, its presence pressing down on him like a weight he could not lift. "You were chosen," it said. "I did not grant you the mask so you might take without understanding. I grant you the mirror so you may see yourself as you truly are. Will you break the cycle or let it consume you?" Kweku faltered. The mask paused violently, as if it were aware of his hesitation. Its whispers turned urgent, almost threatening. "Do not hesitate. Power is fleeting. Fortune favors the bold. Take it and become legend." But the visions returned, sharper, clearer. The merchant he had destroyed, the village elders who had prayed for protection, the children who now slept uneasily in fear. The trickster's gaze held him, steady and unyielding, and for the first time, Kweku understood something he had never realized. The mask did not give power, it revealed truth, and the truth was his own corruption. He stepped back from the chest, trembling. The mask screamed inside his mind, pulling at his thoughts, threatening to consume him completely. "Do not defy me. I am your destiny."
To his knees, the weight of centuries pressing down on him. What do I do?" he whispered. The trickster's smile was faint, almost imperceptible. "You may break it," it said, "and risk losing all you have gained, or embrace it fully and slowly vanish into the shadow you have created. The choice is yours." Time seemed to stop. The mask paused, alive and insistent, but Kweku finally reached deep into himself, into the ember of conscience that had never fully died. He remembered the faces, the lives affected by his greed, the lessons of his childhood, the stories told under baobab trees by elders who had known the weight of justice. With a surge of resolve, he
tore at the mask. It clung with unnatural strength, but he pulled harder, feeling the fire of centuries resisting him. "I will not be owned," he shouted, voice cracking with desperation. The mask shrieked, not a sound of anger, but of shock and amusement. The trickster stepped back, allowing the struggle to play out. The mask's amber glow flickered, pulsed, and then with a final, almost mournful hum, it split apart, shards scattering like black and gold feathers across the clearing. Kweku fell to the ground, gasping, feeling the weight lift, the oppressive pulse vanish. For a moment, there was silence. Then, a breeze rustled the trees, carrying a faint whisper. "You have chosen wisely. But remember, mortal, the shadows within you are never gone. Guard your heart, lest they return." The trickster vanished as suddenly as it had appeared, leaving Kweku alone in the moonlit clearing. The treasure chest lay untouched, its contents glimmering but meaningless now. Kweku rose, exhausted, feeling both the relief of freedom and the sting of loss. The mask was gone, but its lessons remained, etched into his mind, a constant reminder of the peril of greed and the power of choice. When he returned to the village, dawn was breaking. The villagers emerged cautiously, seeing him alive, unmasked, and changed. There was fear in their eyes, but also awe. Kweku spoke, not with arrogance, but with humility. "I have learned what it means to be ruled by desire. Never again will I let greed blind me to the lives of others." The elders approached, nodding slowly. Mothers whispered prayers of gratitude. And the village, scarred by the night of shadows, began to breathe again. Yet as the first sunlight danced upon the baobab leaves, Kweku knew the truth the trickster had imparted. Power is fleeting. Temptation never sleeps. And shadows, once summoned, can only be resisted, never forgotten. And in the depths of the forest, hidden beneath the roots of ancient trees, a shard of the mask shimmered faintly, pulsing with life, waiting for the next heart bold enough or greedy enough to claim it. The village slowly returned to life, yet the shadows of the past lingered like smoke that would not dissipate. Kweku walked among the villagers, no longer with the arrogance of a man drunk on ambition, but with a quiet humility born from nights of terror, moral reckoning, and the unyielding whispers of the mask. He had survived the trickster's test, but he could still feel the pulse of its lessons within him, an invisible rhythm, a heartbeat of caution. For weeks, Kweku rebuilt relationships, restoring trust where possible, offering what he could to those he had wronged. Some villagers accepted his aid, though always with wary eyes. Others avoided him, uncertain whether the shadow that had once ruled him had truly vanished. Mothers told their children, softly but firmly, "Even a heart that has been tested can hold goodness, but never forget the shadows it has known." And yet, even in these quiet days, the memory of the mask lingered. At night, when the wind rustled through the baobab leaves, he imagined whispers drifting through his home. He would see flickers of amber in reflections, catch shadows that seemed to move against the moonlight, and feel a subtle, almost imperceptible pull in the depths of his chest, reminding him that the mask had not merely been an object, it had
as the
been
village
a
gathered around the central fire, Kweku recounted his story. He spoke with measured words, careful not to awaken fear, yet honest enough to reveal the darkness he had known. Children leaned closer, eyes wide. Elders nodded knowingly. Every word was a lesson, every pause a warning. Greed and desire can rule a man before he knows it, but humility and conscience can free him if he chooses wisely. And then, a soft breeze carried an unmistakable shimmer through the trees. Kweku froze. From the edge of the firelight, a shard of obsidian glimmered faintly, just at the threshold of the clearing. He recognized it instantly. The mask's fragment, one of the pieces that had split under his struggle in the forest. It pulsed lightly,
a heartbeat of life, of consciousness, waiting, observing. He knelt and touched it. The shard was cool yet alive, and in a whisper he could feel rather than hear, the faint voice of the trickster echoed. The heart that resists shadow is strong, but temptation never dies, and neither do we. Kweku's breath caught. The lesson was clear. The mask might be broken, but the spirit endured. It was eternal, patient, cunning, and the cycle would continue. Another heart would come, another greedy soul would falter, and the mask would awaken once more. The trickster's justice was not destruction. It was the teaching of balance, the test of human desire against wisdom. He returned the shard to the earth beneath the baobab, burying it with careful respect, leaving a small offering of water and kola nuts, a gesture of humility. As he covered it, he whispered a vow. I will never again let greed rule me. I will remember this lesson, for life and spirit are intertwined. Shadows may linger, but my heart will not be their home. Days turned into months. The village healed, crops flourished, trade resumed, and laughter returned to the marketplace, though the story of Kweku and the mask became a cautionary tale whispered in the evenings. Elders told it around fires, children repeated it in songs, and travelers who passed through the village carried it far beyond the horizon. The story of the mask that refused to die, of the man it chose, and the lesson that every desire carries its shadow. Yet Kweku himself remained changed, his very being marked by the encounter. He walked among the people with a quiet dignity, aware of the whispers in the wind, the flickers in reflections, and the subtle pull of desire in his heart. He knew that power, wealth, and recognition were fleeting, that every temptation must be weighed against conscience, that every action, no matter how small, rippled through the lives of others. One night, as he sat beneath the baobab staring at the stars reflected in the river, a faint amber glow caught his eye. A leaf stirred, the water shimmered, and for a fleeting moment he glimpsed the mask, not as an object, but as a presence, smiling, patient, waiting. He felt a shiver of recognition, not fear, and then he laughed softly, a sound of understanding. The mask had tested him, and he had survived, but the world was full of hearts yet untested, desires yet unchecked. The trickster spirit would endure, the mask would awaken again, but Kweku had learnt a truth no gold, no power, no trickster could ever take from him. The strength of a human heart lies not in what it owns, but in what it resists. He rose, brushing the dust from his robes, and turned toward the village. The first light of dawn illuminated the rooftops, the fields, the river. Life pulsed, vibrant and unstoppable, yet tinged with the memory of shadow. And as the wind rustled through the baobab, carrying faint whispers of amber eyes, Kweku smiled, not with arrogance, but with wisdom. The mask had refused to die. It had chosen its owner, and through it, a lesson had endured, eternal and unbroken. Desire may call, but the human spirit can choose to rise above it or fall forever into shadow. And somewhere, deep in the forest, beneath roots older than memory, a shard of obsidian paused faintly, waiting, patient, watching.